and figure out how to create a supercar worthy of owning. And if you went straight into a tree, it would hurt a lot.
I don't like Casey's weld, dude.
What's up, people? We are back today with the King Zero build. And you know what? I totally missed doing a video last week, which sucks. But I'm gonna more than make up for it this week because one, you're gonna love the structure going on. We're gonna talk about that. But I am gonna take a sidebar for a moment because it's the internet. People are jerks. In general, everybody is vastly positive of the builds and supportive and love it and inspired, and they think Genius Garage is awesome, and that is so cool. And you get your trolls and your goofballs, and they're kind of fun to make fun of for me and all that, and it's like water off a duck's back. However, every once in a while, somebody gets a zinger in that kind of annoys me, and one person wrote me, and by all means, don't do this, but he writes me and says, "Oh, you didn't do a video on the King Zero last week. Where was the video? That's all anybody wants to see. What kind of scatterbrain freak are you? Obviously burning yourself out." And I'm like, dude, I know you seem like you're trying to be helpful, but not only are you not being helpful and even remotely considering the amount of time, work, and energy that has to go into building something like this, which is the reason I'm bringing this up. I want to tell you about it. That annoyed me because, yeah, clearly I'm a scatterbrained idiot. I'm able to coach build a car from scratch for less money than anybody else in an amount of time that nobody else on YouTube does, meanwhile running Genius Garage and getting everything ready for racing for next year and all the other cars and everything else because I'm scatterbrained. Yeah, that was kind of annoying. So I wrote back nicely, but kind of like, dude. Anyway, let's move on. Come here, I want to show you the amount of work and everything going on here. And I know some of you are going to write right now, "Casey, this doesn't seem like a video where you're going to show any work. Why aren't you showing any work?" Because when I'm working fast and furious to get this car done, it's work, and there's no one else here to record this or edit it. And I don't have time to record it for a week straight when I'm trying fast and furious to get this thing done in a schedule that nobody else could or would do with everything else going on. So guys, give me a break. I'll show you more stuff as I can. But like that actually kind of annoys me. I'm sorry. I kind of had to share that with you guys because when you build something like this, I'm going over the human aspect. For you guys that only want technical stuff, it's coming. Just be patient. This requires an absurd amount of creative and mental brain power and juice to do this because there are no directions. Like, I made some big drawings to get me in the ballpark of kind of what it looks like. Every single aspect of the process of creating this, building this, what it has to be, how you build it, how you fabricate it, has to come out of here. So to do that, I have to consider every material I have around here, every single silly tool, all the tools I don't have that are not ideal, that I can't just magically afford or get enough space to do, and figure out how to create a supercar worthy of owning for a small amount of money that I can theoretically afford and actually get it done so that the final product won't suck. Does that make sense? So, without further ado, come on in, let's look at this more carefully. I tell you what, let's just start here on the side. So, I think you can see it. Now, once the wire form, the basic wireframe buck of effectively where the final car will be, and I use that kind of vague terminology because it'll change a little here and there. That was a huge step, and it was really time consuming to get right. But once it got to there, things were able to go pretty quickly. So what I first started with was a lateral and vertical plane roll axes here, which is effectively a roll hoop. And if you want to go to the front, I think you'll best be able to illustrate and see this. Now, I want to tell you something. For all of you guys that are watching right now that are car builders, you weld, you roll cages, you do old school stuff, and or you've just been around race cars, you'd be like, "I already see lots of things Casey doing that are wrong, and I'm going to comment right now how wrong and stupid Casey is because he doesn't have a magical amount of time to crush in the fourth dimension like this, like some sort of science fiction show, and he can live 4 lifetimes within the span of 20 seconds to make this video." Whew. Okay, I'm better now. But seriously, shut up. Okay, so the roll structure here, where I'm going with that is, typically when you build a roll bar in a car, it will mount to the frame or somewhere strong at the bottom. It will come up. You will bend that tubing, preferably being seamless, coming all the way over to the other side. I did not do that. What I did was I chose approximately where I wanted this tube to be, and then I measured it with tape measure from this point of the edge of the body to the other point of the body, and I literally held it up and tack welded it to the wire form frame because I was able to get the top tubing of my roll structure as high as possible, and also so that it could help support the steel coach built bodywork. It's all handmade in that regard. So once that was in place, I made sure it was horizontal, and then it was, you know, perfectly situated. And from there, I simply tape measured from the points that I wanted to weld to the frame. If you want to come over here, you can see a little more carefully where I welded that in to kind of the strong unibody, and I'll gusset it and stuff as neat. And then just brought it up here, did a fish mouse type cut, and it was really nice. And I went from there. There's a lot of things here that are not ideal, but I'm going to be honest. I did it fast and dirty because I want to get this done. I'm the guy going to be driving it. It's not going to be homologated. No one's racing it. I don't care. And if it goes on the track, it's me. It's safe enough for me to feel good, and it's going to be a great, strong car. And I have to get it done. So please, like, I know I'm harping on this, but I also think that everybody who's built a car that has Monday morning quarterbacks, I really should stop ranting right now, I know. But it's so annoying. It's so annoying. Like, I'm just going to delete your comments if you do that. It's just like, I don't like Casey's weld, dude. Okay, then you build a car this cool, this quickly, that works. Oh, you've never built a car in your life? Then by all means, on behalf of all car builders, shut up. Okay, I'm done, I swear I'm done. Anyway, so I built that roll structure in, and then I ran a tubing here across because this will be the good place to be able to mount the shoulder harnesses from. If you want to come over here and kind of look. So I still have what is the back seat of that Volkswagen Corrado in there just so I can sit in and feel. This is going to come out, and I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to build that. But, you know, I'm going to be mounting shoulder harness points off of that. From there, I had a really important part. And if you go over to that side, you can see it well. Now, here's something else. I did it quick, you guys. I did a real quickie job. So to strengthen the rear portion of the chassis, I went to the top point or node, and I went straight back here to the shock tower, a little bit of a gusset, welded it straight on. This is gusseted, that's with square tubing. And then I decided to triangulate it from here to this point and to there. I'll probably put in a little bit of a gusset here. And the reason why I brought them together here is I did this one first. I could cut this at a 45-degree angle and that mostly at a 45-degree angle, welded it in quick. And then this one, instead of bringing it up here at that sharp angle, I just cut it across there, eyeballed it, measured it, welded it in. It's going to be great. You put a gusset on there, it's fine. So that created the structure, the stiffness of the chassis in the rear. I think the rigidity is going to be good because I'm still going to do on the bottom a triangulation aspect. Normally speaking, this big open area around the engine is not great for torsional rigidity. You'd like to be able to have something going on here, but I'm going to do that on the bottom of the car, and that'll do a good enough job. Also, the nature of the steel body and with how that's going to weld and attach is going to add a lot of stiffness to the car as well. So we're going to be good. Now, the next thing that I created, and I'm going to sit in the car to illustrate this point, is stuff that relates to, frankly, safety and side impact. See, my mindset as a cocky racing driver is this. I'm not that worried about safety when it has to do with something that I can control, because I'm kind of old school like that. Is like, if I screw up, well, then it's my own fault and I deserve to get hurt. Like, let's go fast and be awesome. However, other people are dumb, which everybody likes to agree, and that's why the whole internet yells at each other and believes that the only political view acceptable is the one that they have at any given moment. I am being sarcastic because it's true and it's really annoying. So what I mean to say is, I don't want to get hurt because somebody like blazed across traffic like the person that ended up totaling my Viper and hit me in the side. So if you look on this side, you can see that right here is where the window will be. There'll be a side window here, and there'll be a side window down here. So obviously I need to be able to see out. But I wanted some really awesome side impacts, so I used my thicker wall tubing here that is similar to the roll structure, and that goes right where the window is not as my side impact. So I have very strong similar tubing going into this tubing structure here, triangulated here, and I did the same thing back here. And frankly, I overly triangulated and I did it really quick, but it's tough and it's gonna work just fine for this quick build hot rod. The chassis is really torsionally stiff and everything's great. So where I'm at right now, I'm gonna show you another thing. Taking that off so it's easier to get out. Right here, if you look in the front, this is where, this is the original Porsche frame rail type thing going on, and then made these shock towers to hold the McPherson in a way that would hold the coils that I got from Coilover Depot, really great place. I put them as low as possible so it would all fit, and I'm really happy with that. However, the entirety of the Porsche subframe terminated up here, and as you guys can see, my feet are right here, which only gives you a little more than 2 feet of stuff in front of you in the leading edge. So truthfully, there's very little crush protection in the front of this car and impact absorption, and if you went straight into a tree, it would hurt a lot. So I'm just gonna not do that. But in any case, if something were to happen, I would like to give consideration to not getting completely jacked up. So I triangulated the bigger tubing. It's actually quite robust. This is not much in the way of squishing protection. The tubing up here, which also comes right into where the wire form is of the bodywork. So I put this tubing as high and forward as possible. And then there's another large central tubing here and triangulating down here. So if I were to hit something like immovable but relatively low, don't care if it's a boulder or part of a car or something, even though the front chin of this car is so low that it's going to want to go underneath, this will crush the sheet metal and stuff here, and this tubing and the way it is will help deflect the car to go over something instead of just digging into the ground and punching into it, which you can see the triangulation going on here. And then I tied that into the Porsche unibody here with some clever hammering and MIG welding, which is not necessarily ideal, but it works. And then I was deciding whether or not to bother doing these tubes, but I decided in the end to do it, because if in fact there was an impact or a wreck that was kind of on the side, this bodywork would all deform and get crushed and you'd be right into your tire. And so I ran the tubing from here to here and gave it some triangulation support there, so that also if you have an impact here, it tries to get the car to go up and over it when the sheet metal deforms. But also when you hit this, this is strong enough, and the way that it's triangulated will get the car to deflect off to the side. So, you know, a dead forward impact, it's not going to be pretty. You run square into a tree, it's not going to be nice. But I did want to do as much as I could, considering the sheet metal would deform and the car would deflect. The other thing about this is this will all be encased in carbonite for you Star Wars nerds. And I'm not going to see most of this again because the way the sheet metal is going to be over top of it. So I wasn't being that concerned with how pretty it is, just that it works well. And then with the sheet metal up here, I went with 14 gauge steel, just heftier for the sake of impact and all that. Now, for the windscreen and where it opens, that's where we're getting into the delicate work. So right now, what I have to finish before I can start doing actual body paneling is, and I don't know if this drill's in the way, sorry about that. I'll move it, cameraman, my man. Right now I've got a foot stomp sheet metal shear, boom, coming so I can cut a big piece of sheet metal, and also Genius Garage can use it. And that'll help me zinc through the bodywork and all the inner stuff. So the two things I got to finish right now are the windshield framework, which is now not anything, and the wing support in the rear. Now to do that, if you'll notice this structure here that was done out of 3/4 inch square tubing, this structure is where it's going to get heftier than bodywork so that I can step in this area when you get in the car. So you literally step here to get in when the windshield opens up. And I'll probably put like a no step thing down here. So I'll probably paint this like black or something so you know where you can step and not to step. So that's the support for where you can step and get in. Also, I have to think about more roll structure. So if you notice, there's nothing coming from the top of the roll structure to the shock tower or down there, and there needs to be more sheet metal and stuff happening in here. So this all has to happen at once, and I'm kind of like, about it because it requires a heck of a lot of thought. So let's think about this morbidly. If you get in a front end impact, chances are the vehicle's going over top of you and you're going underneath, probably like those crazy like shovel cars on Grand Theft Auto. So if you've got a really hefty windshield or like really thick polycarbonate, which actually would be better in this circumstance, although I know all you pedantic people are going, that's not DOT approved. Well, the DOT isn't very creative. You know how the government works. Polycarb's better if you make it thick and safer. And here's why. I don't want it to shatter and be on me. I want it to remain integral and be able to flex, because if somebody comes over the top of you, it's going to try to smush that down. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, you should put in a tube here and a tube here and a tube there. How am I going to get in or out, man? Like, that's the problem with this design, okay? There's a certain amount of that. So this 3/4 inch steel square tubing here, if you notice, I have tack welded, if you want to come up close, tack welded it to the actual wire form of the body edges. And what I found out, it was relatively easy to bend. I literally just took this and shoved it into the tube frame and kind of bent it until I get the curves I wanted. So I made this framework here, and from there I can add strength to it. But this is the plane that the polycarbonate can rest on, and the polycarbonate will be both bonded to self-etching primered steel as well as riveted. So it'll have it'll be bonded, but the rivets will also create a mechanical connection. And with enough of them, with the body work over, you won't see it. It'll look flush, it'll look gorgeous, but it can support an absurd amount of weight before it yields. Now, if you were to drive over and you got wheels and a big impact, it's very low and it would glance over. So there's a couple of things that have to happen. The roll structure from this point, which also triangulates to the roll bar, but also back to the rear shock towers, is the high point that I can bring a tube from there, tie into the top of the shock tower, which is a great rigid node, and then down to here. I'm going to have fingers or a tube on the inside of this, so if there were force being applied here, it would try to bring the windshield in. Well, if the roll tubing you real sophisticatedly get right here, it won't be able to. And the strength of the polycarbonate, with all the rivets as well as the bonding, should be enough to deflect a lot of heavy impacts and such with that. Also, since this opens up like this, if you did flip over and you're on your lid, that's why the side windows slide open. You could crawl out that way, either way, so that's a bit of a safety consideration. And then with regard to the front up here, I'll probably do 2 latches, one on either side, and they can mount down here. Because if you notice where your feet are, and I will get in and illustrate, there's not a whole lot of room from the occupants to the windshield. I mean, this is a very extreme car, which is exactly I wanted to build it. Because normal cars bore me. Yes. So if my feet are here and the passenger's feet are over here, I don't want to put a latch really right in the middle because my gas pedal needs to be there. But I do have provisions to put the latches on the left front and the right front over here. I hope that makes sense. That's what I'm working on right now. Now, you might say, well, Casey, if this is welded into your wire form, how's it going to be a windshield that opens and closes? I'm like, simple. I have a saw. And what I mean to say is, the thing that's kind of cool about this is when you're doing a wire form, you can make the whole body as one. So if it had doors, you know, on the side like a normal car, I mean, this does have a door, has one big one here. What I do is I start building the structure and support of the door in the shape it needs to be of the wire form. And then when I have all the structure and everything I need underneath it to where now it's ready for it to open up, well, if you want your door to be open, you just take a triangle, zing, 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 zing. So the last step of building this windshield that opens and closes will literally be me with the angle grinder just cutting 4 points of 1/4 inch cold rolled steel. At which point I will actually already have the hinges in and it will open and close. I'll do the latches last. Now, relating to the hinges, the original car, if I'm not mistaken, used kind of a door hinge looking thing. Not just like this, but not dissimilar from a nice door hinge. And I thought about doing that. However, there's not a lot of room in this car, and the original design wasn't that great of a driving car. You can see it from the short guys in the seersucker and pastel colored clothing at the Concours when it drives around. That was only a little of a bit of a dig. I wasn't being that big of a jerk because I'm dressed like that too. But I would much rather wear blue jeans and a t-shirt and have dirty fingers ripping around a racetrack in this thing. So I have decided to make the hinges of the door actually out of a spherical rod end, like you'd find in the suspension of a race car. And there's some good reasons for that. One, there's ability for misalignment left and right, but it also very nicely has whatever range of motion I need. I had them laying around so I can just clean them up. And these cool lug nuts here are the exact same thread for the right-hand thread, and it already has a real nice taper if I want to weld it to something. So what I'm going to do, if you want to come on over there maybe that's the best place to see it. The lug nuts here, and I'm going to add some more structure to the back of this tubing, but let's say this is the tubing where it was going to mount. We'll weld on like that, and as long as I get the angle right, it'll be fine. And then you'll be able to thread in this Heim joiner spherical bearing, and you'll have some bit of adjustment if you take it off and disconnect it. And then from there, you just need your pivot point, which should be illustrated right here by this bolt. And then I just have to decide how I want to affix it. So if that goes on right there and connects to the opening hinge, then that means it'll pivot right here. So I've got a bolt that can go through. I've also got a nut here, and this nut can either weld to a bracket, so the bolt just goes in and threads in, and you tighten it down and you're good, which I like that, or you can just let it be free. So what I'm gonna do is have another bit of tubing structure coming here which supports the roof above your head. And the other nice thing about where these hinges go, they go off to the side far enough that the occupants' heads are in this area and you're not crowding them. So that there'll be a little bit of an area here, things supporting it, but it won't get in the way of your head. And actually that'll reflect a lot like the original car was. So I am gonna run a transverse tube, probably right about here, which gives me the ability for this to have some support. It's possible I might not do that. It just depends on how I feel with regard to roll structure and support above the occupant, because this is quite good, but you really need the windshield area to be supported rock solid in the rear as well as rock solid on the sides. The front's not as super important if in fact something ever went over top of you. So that's what's going on. So wow, I am dropping literally everything. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I wanted to go over it with you guys, and thank you for being patient with me and letting me get that off my chest about people that just pick on it. But it really drives me nuts because the kind of people that have the nerve to go out there and say they could weld better, or you're not doing it right, or why did you cut it like this, when they themselves are not actually doing something better than you, are the same kind of jerks that will make fun of a kid who's learning how to play a musical instrument and saying they suck. They're just learning. Shut your face. Let them become good at musical instruments. And for me, yeah, I know how to build race cars, and it's going to work just fine. And maybe it doesn't look that pretty, but you're not going to see it anyway. And I want to get it done so I can drive it. And don't say dumb stuff like that. Because if you want to look at pretty pictures of welds all day, go to Instagram and look at it, okay? But I want to make cars like everybody else on the planet, and you do that to a certain level. So moral of the story, and the reason why I wanted to rant is people just need to get over yourself. Just shut up. If you think somebody's not doing it well enough, why don't you go out and do it better? So last thing I want to show you real quick here, something else I had to do was, here's the shock towers in the rear, and since the McPherson, this car is hugely lowered now. And as you lower it and lower it and lower it to its extreme position, you get camber gain. That's why the goofballs in Stents Life Brawl, their cars look stupid and they're running on the inner wheel. That's what I do to express myself. Don't criticize my car. Yeah, okay. That's cool, you're expressing yourself, and I'm expressing myself that I think the way you express yourself is stupid, which it is, so get over yourself. Anyway, I don't want my car to be like that, and you can see right here, if you look carefully, that I had to elongate these holes for the McPherson to move all the way out. So, I mean, it's moved from an inch position. Problem is, in doing that here, you can see where this is round, where it used to support and being in the center, and you get to an extreme position, so that had to be cut out. And again, I did this very quickly. I just took a piece of steel at the similar gauge to what this is, and I cut out a rectangle. I threw in the sheet metal brake to bend it so it has the rigidity here, which could be tied in there. And then I just quick cut those off. I had already pre-drilled a hole in this, so I just put it on. I put the nut on it, tightened it down, and welded on. Done. Good enough. So pretty happy with that. And obviously this is a car of my own, so I get to choose the level of standard that I want it to be. When this is all painted and together, it's gonna look gorgeous. I feel very confident how well it's held together, that it's got the right in terms of side impact, the roll structure, everything that needs be. And honestly, I probably will take this car on the track. And I feel in every way confident about it. If I was building it for somebody else, I know they get all crazy and pedantic, so I might take a little more time on these things. And for all the trolls out there that want to comment on they don't like the way I'm doing it, well then I invite you to build a better car quicker and show me up. And if you can't, maybe that's your cue to stop talking and stop hurting the inspiration of young people out there that might also want to try. Because I've been doing a lot of things that people always criticize and tell me I couldn't. And after all those years that have gone by, I've got a lot of really cool things to show for myself that I did. And all those people that criticized me, whether they could or could not have done it better, don't. So food for thought. Anyway, guys, the King Zero, I hope you're enjoying this. It's going to start going real fast. And I intend to have this thing finished and driving in January. See you then.